Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
50 grand is still on. 50 grand is still on, James.
We didn't lose it in the first weekend.
No, that is true.
Not that it's so weird in this game sometimes that you can have a massive score or what looks like a massive score, and you go, oh, shit, I've been well punched by most people.
Yes, it's true.
I'd sum it up by saying any week that I only have one more point in Sky than FPL feels like shit.
It's a bad week, potentially. I get that feeling completely. It's funny because in the early stages, obviously, you get a lot of teams that are set up to do well in the early weeks, also who burn transfers in the early weeks, which is not the advice generally. But then in amongst that, there were also some players who play the game properly, who also had some monster scores. But I still think you have to wait 4, 5, 6 weeks, or at least a few weeks after overhaul for things to start even leveling out a little bit.
Oh, even longer. I mean, the advice to new players would definitely be don't get hung up on what the leaderboard looks like. I mean, especially now. I mean, it's 1 week anyway, so it's not the end of the world. It's just one game week. But if you're in mini leagues, that's more of a kind of where you're at. For me, I'm near the bottom of all of them. So I'm like, oh, right. That's the one for me that makes me go, shit, everybody's had a good week. I scored 103. I believe you've taken a screenshot because you're above me, right?
No, we'll do that when I'm a solid 100 points above you. I scored 110. And in the strange week, all my points came from the attacking players. I think there was a lot of similarity in strikers for a lot of players and midfielders. And so the ones that picked the right defenders ended up doing slightly better. For example, on Friday night, I didn't pick Ivan Toney, and that was a 10-pointer. I captained Ben White. That ended up being a 1-pointer. Although Ben White was only 3 passes I saw off getting passing tier, he completed 57 passes, which is annoying to say the least, but that's fine. So Martinez, Diaz, White, Webster, Wan-Bissaka, not a single tier, not a single clean sheet, not a single return between any of them. I mean, I only got 10 points from my back line. And then obviously on the Saturday, captained Salah, so 36 points. There will have been a few that captained Bruno. So that was a 10-point difference if you captained Bruno over Salah. Antonio, I captained on the Sunday, and I think a lot of people ended up captaining Antonio over Ruben Diaz.
I know someone who didn't.
Is that you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I went with Ruben Diaz.
And Danny Ings got me a return as well, but Barnes, Harrison, nothing. So really my returns only came from 4 players: Bruno, Salah, Antonio, and Ings.
I guess you could say I had 5 returnees. Salah captain Saturday, Tony captain Friday. We'll take the 5 points times 2. Bruno Saturday, obviously. I do own Antonio Sunday. Lewis Dunk tier 2 passing on Saturday.
Nice.
And genuinely, I was so busy from when we did the SkyPod Wednesday to Friday. It was like, right, I'm going to have another look on Friday. Was so busy, I couldn't look until like the FPL deadline had gone. So on my stream, I did the Sky team, kind of discussed it live with the people in the chat. And I went from Pereira to Dunk. Obviously, Pereira clean sheet and assist. But yeah, I was quite pleased to see there was no tackle to it or anything with that. So actually, it was only 5 points difference.
Okay, yeah.
And I went with Buendia instead of Rafinha. They also had blanks from Martinez, Webster, Barnes, Harry Maguire. And Ruben Diaz, I went for captain. I cannot believe that Ruben Diaz did not hit passing tier at Tottenham.
Yeah, it's a real surprise. Real surprise.
I wonder, and it's just an early thought, just an early perhaps summary on City. I think obviously having Aki next to him and then Aki having Mendy next to him was something that possibly had an influence on this particular game.
Yeah,
obviously
don't knock it around at the back for fun type situation.
Spurs' 3 forwards played very narrow, which stopped the pass into midfield. So he was either having to go to Walker or Aki. But then I think, not Walker, sorry, Cancelo. I think Tottenham were allowing those two players to pass the ball into midfield areas. So it wasn't just coming back and forward to Ruben Diaz. It was cutting it off. And Jack Grealish slows the play down a lot, doesn't he? He holds the ball for so long that no other Man City players really like that. It's not a criticism of Jack, it's just his style. And I just wonder if it's something that might influence passing tiers a little bit. Also, the fact he gets fouled so much. It feels like the ball's not being recycled as much. Might just be something to keep an eye on. Listen, he's still going to hit passing tiers in the majority of games, but I think, as we'd said previously, once we get to overhaul, it may well be that John Stones, at much cheaper, proves to be the better pick. No major regrets or concerns, though.
Yeah, same for me. I feel fairly comfortable.
The fact Buendia got past fit made me want to edge over it, because I kind of knew that if he failed this weekend, which he obviously did, there's 2 good home fixtures to come. Newcastle just conceded 4 at home, right? Brentford home after that. So Buendia can get me returns. I've got no major issues with what I picked. He just didn't have a brilliant weekend. I think if I'd obviously had a captained Antonio over Dunk, I'd probably more be at par with other people. But I don't have any regrets with that in terms of going safety. It was interesting. I saw Dan Cox put a poll out on Sunday, and I was surprised how many people were going Antonio over Diaz.
That probably swayed my thinking when I said earlier that I think a lot of people went Antonio. I think I voted in Dan's poll, and it was 50. When I'd voted, it was over 50% were Antonio.
Yeah, it was loads.
I think it's going to really influence next Monday night against Leicester. I agree. People go Antonio at home now versus any of the Leicester assets. And I can't argue with that, to be fair. So in terms of transfers this week, obviously, we're trying to hold them back until post-overhaul. I'm not making any, barring any hideous news like Mo Salah's got an injury or something along those lines. Any transfers for you? Are you going to... This Saturday is the last... If you really want to use one, jump off onto a player playing on Sunday.
That's what I said last week, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not for me. I don't get the feeling it's for you necessarily.
No, it's not for me either. I know a lot of people are going to go Salah to Son on Sunday. I don't know if suddenly Harry Kane's in the Tottenham team, if that might spook people. They might even go Kane instead, which obviously, if the extra 0.1's in the bank, obviously you can do that. It's not a for me decision. I'll only be making that move, I think, if Salah gets injured. And there's even a case not to. So the one thing I think is there's a real intent from people, as I said last week, Tottenham captaincy versus Watford on the final day before the overhaul. But not only are you bringing the Tottenham player in, you're also going to take the captaincy off Bruno Fernandes.
Yes.
So in terms of the cost against you, this is need versus want again. You're going to miss Salah against Chelsea. Okay, we don't necessarily expect him to return in that game, but he can. You get effective 3 games of Son if you captain him versus Salah against Chelsea. So when you line that out, let's say Son scores once in both games, which I guess that's probably about the par of what we'd expect. Let's say there's a 7-pointer and a 9-pointer or something, maybe a man of the match in there. Let's say it's 19 points or so. And Salah was the blank against Chelsea. 17-point game. And when you put it like that, I think that's possibly worth it. But I think that's what it's going to be. And also, you're going to move the captaincy off Bruno. So you want Bruno to blank against Wolves as well. And I think when you add that in, I think it's not necessary, because Bruno can do bits in any game, right? As we've just seen.
Double up his points in there as well. So
I don't think it's a necessary. I know a lot of people are going to do it. I think because there's nothing on the end of it as well. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. But lots are going to make that move by the looks of it.
And in terms of captaincy for this upcoming weekend, Saturday for me stays with Mo Salah. For you, stays with Mo Salah?
Yeah, that's definitely the plan for me.
No thoughts on going to Ruben Diaz at home to Norwich?
Yeah, when that's the alternative. But no, I just think the ceiling that is there with Salah. And this week, he'll be very, very popular on Saturday with obviously Bruno not playing till Sunday. Sunday's very straightforward. Bruno away at Southampton for sure. And I think
Monday night.
Exactly what you said. The influence now is, should go with Antonio really against Leicester. I think the alternatives would be, if people had Vardy, might be a bit of a tempter. But Antonio also at the weekend, I don't know if you knew this stat, Suj, but in terms of big chances, no team at the weekend had more than 3. Mikel Antonio had 3.
Well, penalty being one
obviously,
shortly.
yeah.
He hit the post with that header. That probably goes down as a big chance. It literally clanged off. And then he would have had a couple of other chances in the box here. So, yeah, doesn't surprise me at all.
I think Antonio for Monday.
Antonio is, with the crowd back at the stadium, I think you got to back the home team player versus the away player this week.
And also a little bit unknown on them defensively. We assume because of the height, particularly at set pieces and the threat from crosses that West Ham have, that Vestergaard will definitely come into the team. But we're a little bit unsure on the system. Yeah. But either way, I've thought about both. Either way wouldn't bother me. I think that's when I was originally picking my team and I was going to have Pereira, Barnes, Antonio, it was very much going to be wait till I get there. I think because of the influence of last week, as long as Antonio's fit Monday, and you can never guarantee that he will be fit for longer than 5 days, then yeah, Antonio for me on Monday.
Perfect. I did notice on the weekend a real distinct lack of tiering points. And I don't know if that's just my team. Looking at Barnes, Harrison, Wan-Bissaka, Webster, White, Diaz, Martinez, not a single. And to be honest, Antonio only got his shot tier points. And Bruno got his shot tier points because of the goal stroke penalties. Otherwise, there was no tier points for any of them. So, yeah, I did notice a distinct lack of them. Is it something to be concerned about, or something that we should look into further, or take it on the chin and it is what it is?
No, I think it's to take it on the chin. I think it'll calm down. These first couple of weeks might be a bit frantic for a couple of reasons. One, obviously the influence of returning crowds. The second being there's so many different players at different levels of fitness. Mm-hmm. So I think, for example, on Sunday, Tottenham were massively helped by the fact they've played a consistent team throughout pre-season. All the players that played on Sunday have basically played all of pre-season, bar Højbjerg and Davinson Sanchez. Otherwise, they've all played through pre-season. Whereas City, look at the team they played against Leicester in the Community Shield. For a lot of these guys, it was like their first start coming back and stuff. So I think that had an influence. It's something to keep an eye on, yes, and it was something that I noticed as well. There were a few things that stood out that I thought were interesting from the numbers at the weekend, which is worth keeping an eye on. Perhaps a few players we hadn't thought of. Sergi Canos at Brentford scored. Shots here. What was more interesting was the 7 tackles, 7.2. Just a note on Canos. Our Brentford correspondent, Tom Med, believes that when Jensen's back fit, it might be they revert to a back 4. And that would actually put Canos' place in the team at risk. So I don't think anyone's buying Canos. Although I did notice that his ownership had gone above 1%, and I suppose it was probably 0% on Friday. Yeah, ignore these people doing these things. A few others stood out. Lewis Dunk hitting passing tier. Again, he actually
Burnley, isn't it? So you can see
he just about hit tier 2 passing. Because actually, I was keeping an eye on the 3 o'clock games, and he was looking like he was comfortably doing it. And then they went in front, and they obviously kind of sat behind it for the last 15 minutes or so, which also meant that Webster was probably going to hit tier 1, didn't either. I suspect with Veltman back, they might go back to a back 3. Chelsea, loads of players hit passing tier. And from the weekend data, they would look like the go-to in terms of you definitely want a defensive player after overhaul if you haven't already got one. But one really stood out was Gehi at Palace, hit tier 1 passing. He's the first Palace player to hit passing tier in an away game. I think I saw the stat since Patrick Van Arnholt at Newcastle in 2019.
Oh, wow.
But 62 passes away at Chelsea. That's really surprising. So what it tells me is different style of play from Palace. And I didn't watch that game, but it means a little bit more control, shorter football. Might be one to keep an eye on. The other one that really shocked me was Mings and Konsa hit tier 2 passing. Now, again, there may be a real influence on this that Watford will win him from minute 10. So, I mean, you're getting the passing tier, but there's no clean sheet to come with it. But again, they're obviously changing a little bit stylistically. It's a little bit of a new team, certainly offensively. So there might be a different strategy from them because them two hardly ever hit passing tiers last season. And of course, Dennis, who we did mention on the pod last week, but we didn't think would start, is 5.5 forward. Now, if he's going to stay in the team, that sort of shit is going to allow you a backline of in a 5-3-2 of Van Dijk, Stones, Rudiger, Maguire, and something else, right? Trent, whatever. And go really big on like 5-3-2. That, of course, means only one forward. It means you're going to be captaining a lot of defenders during the season, but we know their consistency during the season will come through. Those are the ones that stood out, which were a little bit. So I had a shout out to Yuri Tielemans as well, who had one shot on target, 70 passes, 5 tackles, 1. So he nearly got the lot, Yuri Tielemans. So that stood out as well. Great performance from him at the weekend.
Nice. We have some questions that have come in on Twitter as well, James. Should we do all the Twitter questions?
Yeah, that's going to cover the conversation.
And it wouldn't surprise me if we've covered some of them already. Starting with the first one. Gary, is my cap playing? Why do we all tend to overvalue transfers in March compared to August? Isn't a possible Salah to Son move on Sunday as big a points gainer as anything we might find later in the season?
Yeah, it could be.
Completely agree with it. I think we are getting better at, and the last season was really good at understanding, take advantage of the 3-for-1s earlier in the season if they're there to get yourself some ground. It's something I didn't do. It's more about the uncertainty in August, right? And how teams are going to play and how they're going to set up. We don't have enough information and data. Like, you could make that move to Son, Kane's back in the team, and it changes the way Spurs play, and suddenly it's a duff move. I'd rather hold back to when I have more information, for me.
We've just said like 17 points difference potentially if you kind of went down the line of expectation. Plus, you basically got to add half of that on top because one will be a captaincy, presumably against Watford. So you could make the case to say Salah 2 points versus Salah Son, say 24-25. If that's what transpires and Bruno blanks at Wolves, he's absolutely worth the transfer. But that's got to happen. We've been here before, need versus want. There's nothing to say Salah can't score against Chelsea. There's nothing to say that Bruno won't go off against Wolves. And you're going to go against a heavily owned player on the captaincy on that final day as well. I don't think it's worth it, personally.
Yep. Benny Blanco. Shout out, Benny. Wagwan. Why do I have Pepe in my team? And should I do anything about it?
I'd probably leave it.
Pepe's priced reasonable, isn't he? About 8 million, is he?
I forget. But I think, to be honest, when the news broke on Friday about Aubameyang and Lacazette being out, it made me more interested in Pepe than I was previously. Because I thought, well, that's definitely, I mean, you're going to see the team anyway, but that's definitely a lock. Could he play through the middle? I think when we saw the team, it became clear he probably wouldn't. But then there was a suspicion he could be on pens as well. So I saw the appeal of him.
Arsenal play.
I did watch Arsenal play. I saw the appeal of him. The thing is, it's difficult in that area to kind of know where to go. I suspect most people have probably set up in a 4-3-3, and it's really difficult to move. Even in the case of quite a few people have Gundogan, you're looking at it and going, and we haven't got the injury prognosis yet, although it's not as bad as originally feared. You definitely need to know that he's ruled out until after the international break, I think, to be comfortable selling him. But you're looking at players in that area and it's difficult. Like, even in the case you could say, right, you go up to Mahrez, for example, if you've got the money in the bank and you think that looks great. Mahrez looks more secure now with Gundogan out as well. But is he? And you're also probably not going to put the captaincy on Mahrez, even against Norwich this weekend or against Arsenal. I know someone brave like Luke Williams will do it. Morning disabled. But most people won't. And therefore, is it worth it? You're making 2 transfers. Okay, you're getting 2 games, no captaincy in there. And someone like Mahrez is still a risk as well. And we've spoken about not taking them risks at this time of season. Sure, you're going to be down to 10 players for 2 weeks, but I think it's difficult to find a replacement. So if I consider that for Gundogan, the same really applies to Nicolas Pepe. Yep. Where you going? Where are you going with it? What is there to actually find? There's nothing that stands out with the West Ham Leicester game. I think the one that would interest people, FPL Physio, I was having a brief chat with him on DM last night because he's got Gundogan. And I said to him, the only one I think that would really kind of push me to be tempted is if I didn't own Antonio, come down to Ben Rama to give you the kind of captaincy option for Monday night if you're sitting there and unhappy with a Leicester player. say you've, for whatever reason, you've got Ryan Bertrand in and you're sweating about it, and then make a decision when the team news comes in on Monday night, that would maybe be the one. So it's a no. You'd be pig sick, wouldn't you, if you've got Antonio sitting there as your only coverage for Monday night, and when Gundogan to, let's just say you went to Højbjerg trying to get passing tiers, which, by the way, his positioning, if it continues as it was on Sunday, as suggested last week, that'll probably be a lot lower this season. And then you found out on Monday Antonio was unavailable, and suddenly you've got suddenly you're making 2 transfers. And I realized that's thinking ahead and being very negative, and there's no suggestion something will happen with Antonio, but we just know Antonio, right?
Exactly. Ian Parrin, if the game week 1 rates of 2.3 home wins for each away win and 3.4 goals per game, 62% scored by the home team, continue this week and next, could this affect your captaincy choices moving forward?
No, because I almost feel like over the first 2 games where everyone's got their first home game, atmosphere is so different to what you're going to get once it calms down. Everybody's playing it like an FA Cup quarter-final at home in terms of the atmospheres. So I think that's having a little bit of an impact. Definitely impacted the atmosphere at Tottenham on Sunday. I can say that from my own experience, and I'm sure it did at other grounds such as Watford, for example. So I wouldn't read too much into it. We were always definitely going to get a switch from the slight away bias last year to a back to home bias. It will calm and it will level. I wouldn't expect the goal average to stay that high as well. Remember, we'd said game week 1 was the highest scoring weekend since 2003-04. So no, I don't expect that to carry on. I think the main thing of that, again, it's not just the atmosphere, it's players at different levels of fitness.
Yep, coming back from tournaments and what have you. Dave, simple goal. Assuming we don't have a problem player to solve, is any player worth a transfer in pre-overhaul? Probably not.
In my opinion, no.
Yeah.
No. I definitely understand why people want to make that move on Sunday. It's not going to be for me.
Hornet, SkyFF_Hornet says, Schmikas to Ben Rama if Robbo is back. I don't know if Robbo
won't be back. Yeah, so and from that perspective, it doesn't actually make a difference because obviously Schmikas plays on Saturday. So it's one that's kind of like the Salah someone. You can look at that as a gain. And I think that's one where, again, if you don't own Antonio, that's more tempting. Okay, right. Yeah, I want to stick the armband on Ben Rama Monday night. And then you've got West Ham's final game. Well, you've got Palace last as well, which is decent. So I actually like that one more. Bearing in mind, I think Schmikas probably still will play against Chelsea.
Won't play, but let's see.
I don't think. I know Robertson was seen running this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play till Leeds in game week 4.
Hornet also says Ndidi in my thoughts or sit it out. For now, sit it out, but
I can see that. I mean, he didn't have the best. I watched quite a bit of Leicester Wolves. He didn't have the best game actually on Saturday for his standards, but look, he hit tier 1 passing. He's always capable of tackles. I would prefer to go with Tielemans, and I actually still prefer to go with Barnes because I know Barnes obviously has done nothing the week gone. He's got the explosiveness, isn't he? Tielemans can have 2 consistent ones like that, but Barnes could have one that powers past him. So, and Diddy would be a no for me at the moment. But yeah, 67 passes the weekend's impressive.
Johnny Belfast says, what do you make of Ben Rama going forward if Lingard rejoins? We talked about this on Tottenham. It's going to affect Ben Rama's minutes, 100%. And if he plays, he's more likely to play off the left in Fornal's position. If Lingard rejoins, I don't know what price Lingard is in this game, but it would diminish Ben Rama's interest for me, definitely. Yeah. And I
genuinely have no idea what Jesse Lingard's price is either, actually. So to be honest with you, it's obviously not a player I've been considering pre-season.
No, I'm assuming he's going to be
8.2.
Ben Rama is same price.
No, Ben Rama's cheap, mate.
7 point something.
He's a really interesting one, Ben Rama. Ben Rama is 7.8.
Okay, it's 0.4 in it. It's not huge, but also there's a big difference. It's a bit of a difference. Sorry. Keep an eye on it.
They'll be really interesting because arguably, if Lingard does go there, all 3 players are very interesting. Lingard, Ben Rama, and Antonio, and you probably don't want more than one. And I wonder if it means that people will lean into Ben Rama just being the cheapest and early season form. I don't think it would affect his minutes, Lingard coming in. It definitely would most likely affect his position, though.
Yeah.
So,
and shout out to Johnny because he says, I'm top of your league after week 1. The only way is definitely down from here.
Well done, mate.
No comment on the way down, but well done for getting up there. Tom, SkyFF, what to do with Gundo?
I think if it was me, I'd just sit it out. I'd sit it out unless there's an obvious gain on the captaincy, which I think for me would be Ben Rama. If you haven't got Antonio.
We'll come back to this question from FPL Space Dog in a second. FPL Addict, if a Man City player versus Norwich, if Man City player out versus Norwich, I can see the benefit of using a transfer pre-overhaul. Is the gain worth it now or transfer preservation better later in the season? Well, I guess, Chris, it kind of sort of matters. If you've got an alternative captain like Salah, which I'd assume that he would do, then you're not really worried about the captaincy. So then it's just a case of missing the fixtures. And then it comes back down to Gundo, like you just mentioned, sit it out, right?
I think the difference with selling the City player is that in game week 3, they've got Arsenal as opposed to Liverpool, got Chelsea. So there's a little bit more of a risk in, we've seen Mahrez damage Arsenal in the past, for example, was just using that as the place point. So you probably don't come off the City player with another home game still to come.
Dragos, SkyFF, says Salah to Kane, assuming he stays, or Salah to Lukaku after Saturday. Is it worth it, or stick to Salah till the overhaul?
Lukaku, a no. Again, I mean, yeah, okay, Arsenal Sunday, but I don't think you captain him over Bruno at Southampton. You also don't see the Chelsea team. We'll probably have a clear indication by Sunday morning if he's likely to play or not, but you don't get to see the team. It could easily be a substitute, and then they go to Anfield on the last Saturday. That's a definite no. Lukaku's for thinking about in a couple of weeks.
FPL Binary, first time playing, scored 119 points. So a good start, I think. And you think right. Got Ben Mee in my team. Should I use a transfer as I don't like his fixtures for 2 and 3, or just save it? Just save it.
Oh, that's a grim selection, Ben Mee.
Don't know where it came from, but listen, yeah, first time player.
Let me just give this to you as a law right now. Do not get a Burnley player in this game, a Burnley defender, ever in this game. You want a Burnley defensive player, put Nick Pope in goal. Do not get a Burnley defensive player in this game. Yeah, there's a strong case to move that on with Liverpool and Leeds still to come. I mean, you can obviously have him for Liverpool and you never know your luck. That's not a player that should be started with, unfortunately. I wouldn't have a Scooby-Doo what his price was. Not a clue. And I know, admittedly, he hit the bar at the weekend, actually. But no, you don't want a Burnley defender. You don't want a player in this game who's a defender who is never going to hit tiers. And he isn't.
You've got Amrabat Joe. If Emmanuel Dennis keeps his place up top, is he a viable third striker option on overhaul or a waste of a forward spot?
He really could be. The obvious danger with that is we didn't think going into this weekend that he would start. Obviously, he did. They've got a few players to come back from fitness, Josh King and João Pedro. So, and obviously Deeney's part of the squad as well, although I think will be used sparingly this season. The problem, obviously, with going with him, if he plays the next couple, and you think, oh my God, this 5.5 million centre forward, legit option in Sky is, if it goes wrong, where are you going? Where are you going? Because I think the first thing is you're likely to probably end up in a 5-3-2. And then what? You actually cannot get off it. You can't even go 5-4-1 in this game. So you'd have to make 2 transfers when he came out of the team. And he probably inevitably at some point will, which means, unfortunately, he probably won't be an option unless there's ways around it where you can leave money in the bank to start with. But then if you need to leave a lot in the bank, we're talking 3 million or so. And at which point we might as well just go with Tony or Antonio or something, right? So he's going to be a problem unless he's obvious, unless he goes off if he goes off like, say, Igalo did that Watford season, you'd be in everyone's team and everyone will just suffer it till the problem happens. But I think he'd have to do really well in the next 2 games for me to consider it.
David has a question, FPL Haggis. I've only got Barnes for Monday's game. Is it worth using a transfer for a captain if he isn't in the starting lineup?
Arguably, yes. for Ben Rama.
You think so?
But I would still not necessarily take out Barnes, because Barnes finishes with Norwich. There might be someone you've got who picks up an injury or something at the weekend.
That might be the move to make.
Possibly. So, but there's no reason to think, in my opinion, that Harvey Barnes won't start. And if you've got Harvey Barnes and that's your coverage, just captain him.
And last but not least, in terms of the Twitter questions, James, there's a few raging, and they're not really questions, about this inability to set our captains, which I tried to do yesterday actually, and I realized what. And shout out to everyone saying, please set a reminder and remind Suj before the deadline, especially because I'm going to be leaving my holiday in Cornwall like stupid o'clock to get back to London. I'll be on the road. So when can you start? When can you set your captains? Do we know this yet?
So, first thing, and this is just advice for anybody. Do not tag the Sky Fantasy Football Twitter account. Do not message them. Do not respond to them. Do not engage with them.
Do not use their information as
genuinely
correct. Yeah.
There is not a single person, even the new players, listening to this podcast who know less about this game than them. I don't know if it's run. I've heard it might be run by someone who's representative of Sky Bet, who rather than Sky Fantasy. So the best thing to do is listen to the experienced guys. And the experienced guys say, do not engage. Because when you engage with them, honestly, shit gets worse because they just confuse things even more. The word I've heard is, and they did put it up on the web, on the app last night, is...
Yeah, there's like a banner scrolling across.
Yeah, they are looking into it. They're trying to sort it out. They probably will. It's not the intention, even though the Twitter account said, yeah, you can't do shit till Friday.
Yeah.
By the time this podcast goes out, it might even be sorted. But no, you should. The game should be available to select your captains now. What I would recommend that everybody, and particularly the new players, do anyway, get into the habit of, at the minimum, checking your Sky team every Friday to go back and check them captains. Because if something happens and they run an update or they change something, they've got some of the scoring wrong, it does sometimes throw your captains out. Always check your captains.
Yeah. It's happened a number of times where you think it's set and it's not.
Well, I know one of our patrons at the weekend who had a first team and a second team exactly identical and scored 5 points less. Why did he score 5 points less? Because for some reason the captaincy come off Tony on Friday night with no other player. Right. So get in the habit, honestly, first kick off of the day. If you need to set an alarm, check the team, check Sky, bang, done, finished.
Yeah, the little kind of yellow bar inside the app at the moment, scrolling across, says, thank you for the feedback. We are aware of an issue. You'll be able to set your captains on Friday, the 20th.
Did you say, I mean, to give them some credit, to go the other way, scores updated very quickly at the weekend, which was good. How many times the regular players will know this, sitting there at like 1 o'clock at night, waiting for the update. Like, where am I on the fucking leaderboard? They were very quick at the weekend, so they've probably done something to their servers. There were some players got added with new pictures. Like literally, Brentford seemed to kick off and even Tony suddenly had a picture. It was nice. I don't like looking at blank players in my team. But then they did the comical one. I mean, they still haven't given Emi Buendia a picture though. So like, what was the importance with Tony, but not with Buendia? Anyway, they give Adam Armstrong a picture as well. Have you seen that?
No.
Shame it's Stuart Armstrong though.
Oh no. Oh no.
Fucking idiots.
Oh dear. Well, look, you win some, you lose some. There we go. We'll be back at you with Sky Fantasy Football next week. Again, it will be a bit of a quiet one whilst we get ready for overhaul, but straight after that, we'll be into overhaul thinking, and that will probably start next week as well. Tomorrow, we have a clash of the correspondents for you, which is Southampton, Manchester United. So Gary and Matt will be on with James, talking all things about that fixture. And on Friday, James will be live streaming on YouTube. So head over to youtube.com/Planet FPL to jump onto that live stream. If you're subscribed, then hit the notification bell. As soon as James goes live, you'll know about it. Yeah, that's a wrap.
Good luck. I think the final message will be, look, it's one game week. Don't overthink things. That's
exactly
it.
That.
In any one game week, weird shit can happen, like Tottenham beating Man City. Don't read too much into it.
Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend. Good luck. Cue music, please, man child.